Call tonight's meeting to order. Mike, could we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Barnes? Mrs. Rogers?
Here.
Mr. Januso?
Here.
Mrs. Barney?
Here.
Mr. Roach?
Here.
Mrs. Durig?
Here.
Solicitor Seymour?
Here.
Mr. Brett?
Here.
Thank you. First item on the agenda after the roll call, do we have a motion to approve the March 21st, 2023 minutes?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Mrs. Barnes? Mrs. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Januso?
I abstain.
Mrs. Barney?
Aye.
Mr. Roach?
Aye.
All right. Next on the agenda, we have the engineer's report. Kevin?
Yes, good evening, everybody. Quick update on the Lawrence project. After last meeting, we were going through the Penvest checklist for a quick update for everybody, and during that process, it was discovered that DEP needed to advertise the initial permit, which they've done. So the closing has been delayed for 1 month while they do that. Because the contracts have been awarded, we did reach out, and we do have 2 motions on the agenda for tonight for no-cost change orders for the time extension to allot DEP that time. And then the closing date, tentatively, I seen emails today, the 18th of May, roughly. They're going to firm that up, and then they'll send out another meeting date just to review everything. And then we do have on tonight also a pre-closing letter to Penvest, like we considered before. We want to do that because the contractors do want to order their materials. So after that's approved tonight, they can do that. We can do our shop drawing reviews to keep the process moving. So those are the 3 items for Lawrence. So somewhere around the 3rd week in May, the closing will happen, and then notice to proceed will go out the next day, so then they can mobilize equipment and all those things. So both contractors did execute those change orders with no issue. So any questions on the Lawrence project? And other than that, another motion will be to authorize McDonald Trails Phase 3B bond reduction number 3 for $61,104.60. So I can read those motions if there's no question on those for the board.
I think you're good to read the motions.
Good. Thank you. First motion is motion for change order number 1 for time extension to contract 21-STP1, and that is the Mealy contract for the plant.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Mrs. Barnes? Mrs. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Januso?
Aye.
Mrs. Barney?
Aye.
Mr. Roach?
Aye.
Next is a motion for change order number 2 for the time extension to contract number 2017-01, and this is the Rudzik contract for the line work.
Which one is it?
This is Rudzik for the line work contract.
Oh, okay.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Mrs. Barnes? Mrs. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Januso?
Aye.
Mrs. Barney?
Aye.
Mr. Roach?
Aye.
Next, we'll stick with Lawrence, is the motion to submit pre-closing letter to Penvest.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
I'll second it.
Mrs. Barnes? Mrs. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Januso?
Aye.
Mrs. Barney?
Aye.
Mr. Roach?
Aye.
And the last motion is for McConnell's Trail Phase 3B. Motion for reduction number 3, $61,104.60.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Mrs. Barnes? Mrs. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Januso? Mr. Januso?
Aye.
Mrs. Barney?
Aye.
Mr. Roach?
Aye.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Next up, we have the solicitor's report. Christine?
Thank you. I just have a couple items to report. I've submitted a written report. With regard to the Lawrence project, Ramel and the attorney for Mr. Nasser continue to discuss the condemnation. Hopefully, I believe everything's moving in a positive direction, and Ramel will probably have more to report on that next month. I also passed out with the report a packet with the most current McCullough information. There's also a brief summary of each. There's two cases. The one that involves the appeal involving the authority that was dismissed as a result of a failure to cure some procedural defects, but she does have an appeal period through April 20th to go to the Supreme Court. Additionally, on the other case that we're not a party to, but that we receive emails on, that is with regard to the tax sale of her home. That has been making its way through the court system because she's been challenging that, and that has been appealed to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. But again, we're not a party to that. You'll see that we receive emails with a number of other people on that. With regard to the CHJA litigation, the court entered a case management order, and discovery, the pleadings have now closed. The complaint was filed, the answers were also filed. So discovery will continue through September. So that'll be, more interrogatories and depositions and that kind of thing. Let's see, and finally, with regard to the personnel manual, we're working on it. Ramel and I are going to touch base with Shayna and Mike. I think we have May 4th as the date. So hopefully by the next meeting, we'll be in a position to, prior to the meeting, we'll circulate it to the entire board and take, any of you guys' comments or whatever into consideration and make whatever changes, and hopefully, maybe by the May meeting, we can adopt it. And that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Christine. Next on the agenda, we have the business manager report. Mike?
All right, your
Oops, I'm
packets.
sorry, Shanna. My apologies.
That's
I
okay.
jumped down.
Your packet includes the February 2023 financial reports. Is there any questions?
No questions.
And also, I'd like to report that Mark Turnley, the auditor, he's planning on coming in tomorrow into our office to do some audit fieldwork testing to get the 2022 audit started.
Very good. Does anyone have any questions for Shanna? Thank you. Now we have Mike with the authority manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chairman. First thing we need to do is we need to amend the agenda to include Resolution 2023-05. What this does is it updates Resolution 2023-03 for the Penvest borrowing. During the upload of the documents for the Penvest closing, The original resolution had some wording in there that they did not like. It included to be proceeds used on an interim basis from a loan. We did not intend on doing that, so they wanted us to update that. So all this needs to be done is updated. So we will need to have a motion to amend the agenda to add Resolution 2305 to the agenda.
Could you again repeat what changes are made to what
Yes.
we already discussed?
It was, whereas in its original meeting on February 21st, 2023, funding recipient adopted resolution number 2023-03, permitting the reimbursement of general funds for the project costs incurred by the funding recipient, with the proceeds to be issued debt obligation to the Pennsylvania Infrastructure Authority up to the maximum principal amount of $18,078,512. Whereas the funding recipient desires to amend the original resolution to eliminate an assertion made in the third whereas clause suggesting its intention to use interim financing to pay project costs on an interim basis until the proceeds of the Penvest debt obligation are received, and to clarify its intention to pay project costs on an interim basis using only its general funds until the proceeds of the Penvest debt obligation are received.
Okay. Do we have a motion on Resolution 2023-05 as stated?
I'll make that motion.
You know, at first, we need a motion to amend the agenda.
Okay.
And then we can do the motion on the actual resolution.
All right, okay. I will backstep again. And do we have a motion to?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Don.
I'll make the motion to amend the agenda.
I'll second it.
All right. Now, do we have a motion for resolution number
You need a,
2023?
Wait,
I need to do the roll call vote first.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Mrs. Barnes? Mrs. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Januso? Mr. Januso?
I think he's
He
stuck.
looks frozen.
He's frozen.
In Florida? I think so.
We're frozen up
Good air
here.
conditioner.
Can't pull him back. There he goes. Mr. Januso, your vote on the amendment of the agenda?
okay, I lost you guys for a while. I'd vote aye.
Mrs. Barney?
Yes.
Mr. Roach?
Aye.
All right. Now, do we have a motion for resolution number 2023-05, as stated by Mike, to change the language about the borrowing?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
I'll say,
Mrs. Barnes? Mrs. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Januso?
aye.
Mrs. Barney?
Aye.
Mr. Roach?
Aye.
Thank you. First item on my report is the fuel pump on the 2014 Ford pickup went bad, so it is in the process of being replaced. While it is in the shop, I'm having the oil changed on it, and the state inspection is being done since it is due in June of this year. So while it's in the shop, we'll have it all taken care of. We had a call for a sewage backup at 18 Springcrest Drive on the 31st of March. McKean Plumbing was able to remove the root buildup in the line. But I recommend that at some point in time, we have the line televised to make sure there's no more root growth and the condition of the line, because it's a PVC line, but we have roots in it, so it may indicate the line's damaged. So I'd like to take a look at that and get that taken care of. Item 3, I have ordered the replacement UV bulbs and spare ballast for the disinfection process at Miller's Run water treatment plant. These are maintenance items. They can't be capitalized. We were able to save $1,000 by ordering the bulbs from UV Doctor and the ballast from Trojan Technologies. The bulbs do have a 12,000-hour replacement warranty. Last month, the board approved our laborer going to the Beaver County Community College for the wastewater operation certification program. The cost was $2,250. There was actually tuition training assistance through the job training for Beaver County, and the authority will be getting a 90% reimbursement for sending him to this program. So the authority will only have to pay $225 out of pocket. So he'll be getting certified and we'll be getting reimbursed. Item 5, I had mentioned last month about our energy contract that was secured in 2019 will expire in July. Our current fixed rate is 0.5478 cents per kilowatt hour. I did preliminary review of this. The savings aren't going to be as big as they were from our last contract, but the rates are starting to increase, so we're probably going to want to renew as soon as possible. As of today, Freepoint is the best rate provider at 0.7603 cents per kilowatt hour, and this would be over a 3-year period. I don't recommend going out any longer than that because it starts to increase, and going further, it's a little bit higher if you go for a shorter period. The current rate for West Penn Power is 0.11250 cents, so we will be getting a savings per kilowatt hour, but we're going to need to lock that contract in, but I want to make everybody aware. Cool Valley project update. I'm still working with a GAI. I have not heard anything else, so there's no changes of right now. Jack, I don't know if you've heard anything more from them. Okay, so I'll keep you in the loop. If you hear anything, you can let me know as well. I'd appreciate it. Last item is the 2010 F-250 pickup. We've mentioned this before because we had applied for a grant that it's in poor condition. Looking at it, last time I was down at the plant, it does not look like it's going to pass inspection in June. We do have funds set aside in the capital budget, so I'm going to do some research and just get a price on replacing this vehicle. It actually looks like there may be some 22s that are still available that we may be able to get a savings over a 23, so I'll price out both ways, but I just wanted to let everybody know.
You know what, Mike, too? I know a couple of the authorities that we work with, they've looked into that Co-Stars program.
That's
And
what
they
it'll-
sometimes they can get a good deal through that, too.
You actually do, Christine. I am going to go through Co-Stars. It's just that if we can get a 22 and with Co-Stars on top of it, you'll get a really good price. Because I know my last employer, when we bought the 2014 F-250, or was it 2015 F-250, the truck stickered at 43 on Co-Stars. We got it for 26 and change. So it is a big savings through that, so we'll see what we could come up with. But I just want to make everybody aware that, we may have one vehicle that's...
Out of commission soon.
Yeah, and I don't want to put any more good money over bad for a vehicle that's
When is the inspection due on that, do you know?
June. So, but that's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Mike. Does anyone have any further questions for Mike? Okay, a review of correspondence. Does anyone have any questions about correspondence?
Everybody in their package should have received, and Christine, you were copied on this as well, letter from Mr. Rothka in regards to a lien that he was seeking for penalties and interest reimbursement. Chris, I can forward to you on this, for your opinion on this.
Yeah,
think we should talk about this.
right? And they already paid the lien off. And now they want us to give them back the money and more, apparently, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was also discovered during the process that when it changed hands, a dye test was not done as well
Correct.
on this. So it was, I think if I'm not mistaken, this was a divorce proceeding case.
I believe so, yes.
But like I said, again, everybody was given this. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of this, take it under review, think about it, and, we can go from there, but.
And the other thing is, they didn't do, when the property transferred, even if they didn't request a dye, like you said, a dye test, so we weren't put on notice of the transfer, so the lien would have continued to run with the property. So, I'm always willing to listen to anything else that anybody wants to add in, you know what I mean, if they have any other information. But based on what I've reviewed right now, we were entitled to that lien, and we didn't do anything improper.
All right. Any other correspondence, questions? Okay, next on the agenda, there are some items, we're looking to get a motion to approve payment of expenses, transfer of funds. The first one is the DMR review and approval. The next is payment of expenses invoices. This was all in our packets. And employee payroll, 941E, tax deposit, employee state tax payment. Do we have a motion to approve payment of these items?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call vote?
Mrs. Barnes? Mrs. Rogers?
Aye.
Mr. Januso?
I think he's froze again.
I think he's frozen again.
I lost you again.
We're,
Always when it's your turn to vote.
it's your turn to vote on the payment of expenses and transfer of funds and payroll and taxes.
I vote aye.
Mrs. Barney?
Aye.
Mr. Roach?
Aye.
All right, with that, do we have any comments from the floor tonight? All comments will be limited to 2 minutes per person, but we're happy to have you come up with your comments.
Hi, Karen Cross, 14 3rd Street, Lawrence, PA 15055. Wanted to thank the board for the Lawrence project. I'm excited about it. I don't know about some of the other people in town, but there's a lot of people who don't understand what's happening with the project. There's not been any updates to the community since about a year or more ago. A lot of questions are coming up about when is construction starting? Is there a plan for the construction that can be posted? We do have one of the engineers ask us to create a Facebook page, which we have done and have been putting information as we can see it out there for the community. But there, one of the major questions that people have been asking, is there a map, a large overview of the project? I know there are detailed maps, but where's the plant going? Where are the lines going? Is there one map that can be shared that we could put a link to that people can see that? The other thing that people are asking, I know the tap-in fees aren't set. I keep trying to tell them that. there was an estimated amount given. As soon as that update can be given to the community, that would be good. Also, the phases of work, if that could be posted, where is the construction, where are there gonna be disruptions, with people trying to get to work and different things that are going on. There's concerns, I know Mr. Barnes brought up, concerns with the if you wanna call it that, the infrastructure that is there, when the digging starts and that it doesn't interrupt some of us who do have some connections going to different places. So it would be nice if there could be a community meeting held that would just update the community on that. And then the other thing is, I know it's projected to be the fall of 2024 for the tap-ins, but how does that happen? People don't understand that they have to get the connection from their house to the tap-in, and how does that all work, and what do they have to do? They're very nervous about that. And then we have a lot of elderly people who need to know if there's going to be some type of assistance, some things for them to help them out. So that's my concerns. But thank you very much for what you've done
We really
so far.
appreciate your comments. And Kevin, you might be able to give a little bit of information, but we're exploring ways where we can get the communication out to the residents.
Mrs. Barnes, if I can address that, Mrs. Rogers, if I can address that. I met with Mr. Barnes a week or so ago, and these are some of the concerns he expressed to me. What I just talked to Kevin before the meeting, one of the suggestions is to have a town hall meeting up there in Lawrence to give everybody an update of what's going on, to have the contractor there, so these concerns can be addressed with him as well. This way they have a face and a contact point besides the authority to go ahead and let people know where the work's going to start, to see what the organization, way we're going to do it, which part of town. I'm sure we can pull some sort of a map together to show an overview of what the project is for everyone. As far as the tap-in fees, there's been nothing set yet, but as soon as we know, we will forward that on to everybody. But yeah, it was one of the things that we were concerned with as well, is getting that information out, because people are going to want to know where they're working, of how it's going to affect them. So probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll get together with Kevin and, some other things there and see what we can put together and set something up and coordinate with Mr. Barnes, because he suggested using the one facility up there. I can't remember the name of the hall by the post office.
The Civic
The
Association.
Civic Center.
Yeah.
And he said that, we can have something there and, put that out there. So we are aware of that, and we are working on ways to, keep the public informed.
Okay, and like I said, we do have the Facebook page set up, and we've been putting information out there. If we could just get a link to the map, that seems to be one of the major concerns with people. They're upset because they don't understand where it's all going. Somebody will put something out there that I know is not true. We try to correct that information immediately. There's only 3 of us that are administrators on it, so we're trying to get the factual stuff out there, people to make decisions and see.
We've just been trying to get through all the back and forth with Penvest and get everything, all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, because something could change, on a moment's notice, like we got pushed back for another month. So it's one of those things where we want to make sure we have all the correct information to give out to people. So this way there aren't all the rumors and everything swirling around, so.
And with that, the one thing was the pushback of the month. Construction was supposed to begin towards the end of May. It was April, May timeframe. So is that May, or is that June now?
I'm probably figuring, Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm probably figuring the end of May is probably
Yeah,
still about on
You'll
target.
see activity end of May.
End of May.
And the contractor, it moves relatively slow on line work. They put in maybe 100 feet a day. So it's going to take about a year, roughly. They have to provide notice, like where they're going next. They'll provide a schedule. The line work and the plant, it's two different contractors. The plant work, it's a prefabricated plant, so it's getting made somewhere else, and then it'll be trucked in and built. So the plant site itself will have some work on it, but not a lot of work up front. That'll start probably about 6 months in, and it takes about a year to complete the plant. So that's why it's like the end of 2024, whenever tap-ins will start. Hopefully mid-2024, but until we actually give them notice to proceed, they won't give us their final schedule.
I was gonna say, you
So
don't have the
that's-
final schedule yet, because you haven't given,
Correct.
instruction, so.
So that's the
you
deal,
will-
yeah.
You will have the schedule that we could share with the community.
Yeah, and then it'll
right?
be updated. We'll have monthly meetings, and then if there's supply chain issues, we can update, through the office, what the schedule is so that the community can know where they're at and if there is gonna be a delay. The nice thing is there's an operating plant, so about half of the community isn't really gonna see any construction other than a force main. The other half is gonna see a force main plus gravity. The plant site itself, the existing plant, it won't get transferred over to a lift station until the new plant's ready to be operational, so. So it'll be about 18 months, roughly, is what we're thinking, beginning to end, so.
Okay,
But,
Thank you.
We will provide a graphico. Currently, if I send out the CAD plan, it's very difficult to see. So I'm gonna try to bring it into GIS, something that you can put some color to, so that if you're gonna show it on a website, that people could actually read it and see it, because the current drawing, it would be difficult for somebody really to know, like, where their house is. So if we can get some information that helps that, we'll do that. Kind of release that at the same time.
okay, thanks.
Good deal, thank you.
So I just asked Mike, so what we would be hoping to do with the schedule of the closing happening around the 18th of May, we would be looking to host that meeting before that time, or right before that happens.
Right before that happens, yep.
So the first 2 weeks of May, probably mid-May.
Hi, my name. Thank you. Hi, my name's Dino Sabatoni, and I live in Lawrence. I was actually here 2 years ago in April, and I had some questions, and I was assured that they were going to be addressed, and actually they weren't. And I understand there's been a change in the board and everything. And I came in and I'd noted that they thought Walter Oshinsky and his helper, they thought that the easements were all coming in and they'd have those in immediately and they were going to go running with them. And I says, no, our neighbors that are getting them don't know what they're getting. They haven't, there wasn't any meetings that explained everything. They just get a letter in the mail, and the first thing they did was just toss the letter out. I says, you really need to have a meeting to get everyone up to speed on what's going on and, just allay their fears. And he said, no, because of the pandemic, you can't have a meeting. And I said, well, there's Zoom. We do meetings all the time on Zoom. And so that just went by the wayside. And that was one delay there. There was a lot of problems, especially with the drawings. They had one of my lots actually owned by the neighbor, and then he had the sewer lines all messed up because of that. And I said, no, I'm not going that way. I'm going the other direction towards the VFW. And so then the previous engineer, John Mowry, was extremely helpful and got everything all straightened out for us. I understand that there was an issue. His wife, his ex-wife, was the chairwoman of the thing, and so his firm got fired essentially, and then the new firm took over. And I asked, well, can we at least get the drawings online? And she asked the engineer, and they said, yes, we can do that. This was 2 years ago, and nothing. So I was, discouraged again, because if you put the drawings online, then the neighbors get to talk to each other and say, hey, look, this is where the sewer line's coming over here. I can't have it here because of this or that. And they get together and everybody talks to each other, and you take care of these problems upstream instead of waiting and waiting and waiting. Things with the easements, wait, no one came to the doors. A lot of people, rent and stuff, so it might get sent to the owner, but the owner then doesn't communicate, or it went to the wrong person, and with post office boxes, if you send it to just like the census, if it goes to the physical address, it goes right back to the government, undeliverable is addressed. You have to have the PO box number of the person. So really, you need to go door to door, knocking on doors, and get people up to speed. So what happens? Properties were condemned so they can get the easements that they needed. What is that? There's court costs for that, more money being spent, more delays, inflation comes on, costs go higher. It's just so frustrating that, you tell the people, this is what you need to do, please look into this. This will help solve these problems. Get everybody talking, everybody meeting, see everything online, and it just is ignored. And it's frustrating because now we get to bear the extra cost. I hope that there's some effort being taken to, take care of that extra cost. I don't know how much extra costs all told, but it's a lot of money with inflation especially. And if this would have been done before, we could have handled this. But I don't know. I'm just so frustrated with it because, these delays, that it costs money. And I do appreciate everyone. I know everyone, it's a difficult job. A lot of people do volunteer on the boards, and you're, doing the best you can. But when someone does put forth an idea, at least, talk about it. And especially when the chairwoman assured me that that was going to happen, that the drawings would be online. And I later hear, the drawings are too big to put online, which is nonsense because you could even take JPEGs of them if you're not going to do anything and post them and put a whole bunch of those out there. And in fact, I talked with the previous engineer, and they post drawings all the time. So this was just extremely frustrating, and the taxpayers are going to have to foot the bill now. And so I'm hoping that you guys can do something to try to claw back some of that money that was basically lost.
Excuse me, how long have you been the attorney for the people in Lawrence?
Attorney?
How long have you been, are you an attorney, or are you
No,
representing them?
I'm just a citizen. I'm
Okay,
just
so you're a
resident.
citizen representing Lawrence?
No, I live in Lawrence. And
Okay.
I'm going to be one of the people that's paying more money because there were
And how
things-
long have you been waiting for this project to take off?
Well, we were told 2 years ago that the easements were coming in and they were going to get right on it, and it just got drug on and drug on.
And it's been going on over 10, 12 years.
Well, the whole thing,
Yes.
Lawrence
I
project.
appreciate your comments and your frustration. I think we all can, but I can only tell you what we can do moving forward.
Yeah.
And like Mike and Kevin said, we're planning on having a meeting within the community.
That would be very
And
helpful.
we're also looking at what we can do to share an overview map.
Yeah,
So we will do what we can moving forward. I
And that was,
cannot change what
that was my
done in the
concern
past.
before, 2 years ago, and that's all I'm asking is that, especially after I was told that it was going to be taken care of, and it didn't happen. It's very frustrating, but,
Your
Sir, I
points are
didn't
well
get your
taken.
address.
pardon me,
Your address?
right next to the VFW.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Do we have any other comments from the floor? Okay, I think that is all on the agenda, so do we have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
I want to say something before
Okay.
we adjourn.
Sure.
I know we've been getting these packets in the mail. I know that takes time for whoever in the office to send those packets and put them together, and even enclose the magazine from the authority. I'm just wondering if we can utilize the internet and send more emails with any important information that we should know beforehand, rather than spending anywhere from $3.50 to $5 sending out these here manila folders. I'm on the supervisor's board, and we don't get nothing beforehand except the agenda. And, but anything we need to know comes by emails. And that's quite a bit of money spent that could be saved in time.
If you want, if you let me know, we can do it that way. I can combine them all into one packet and put it all together and send you an electronic packet if you'd prefer it that way. You know, it all depends on what your preference is.
Well, I'm speaking for the board, but I'm also speaking for the authority as far as how much money can be saved every month by not sending these packets. I mean, this last packet was $3.60-some or whatever, and, you know, and it's your time, ink, paper.
If that's how you guys want it moving forward, just let me know, and we can put it together however you want. I mean, just think about it and let me know before next month's meeting. I can do it either way. I know a lot of times there's a lot of stuff here. If there's something you want printed out, you know, we can bring it for the meeting. But we can do however you'd like. Jack, is there a way that these screens in front of us, if I send them an electronic packet, we can put it up in front of them if they needed it? Okay, then I can do something like that if you guys prefer. It's the will of the board, whatever you guys want.
We can talk about it. I know that the chairperson isn't here today. I'm fine either way.
Then
So,
everybody talk about it and just let us know which way you prefer.
okay. Good.